It is obvious what Donald Trump and MAGA are trying to do. They're trying to make this a one-party country. That's what all fascist parties want to do. They want to eliminate the Democratic Party. They want to undercut it, undermine it, devalue it, go after its icons, go after its leadership, go after its mythology. That's why we're seeing new investigations, phony investigations being opened up against Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, Leticia James, New York Attorney General, and Adam Schiff, Senator from California, all political rivals of Donald Trump. He wants to try to crush them under the weight of his corrupt Department of Justice. We break it all down for you on the recent edition of Legal AF, the podcast. And here's a clip.
Let's move on. Let's talk finally about weaponization, Schiff, Leticia, Obama, and is this a bluff? Is this the headlines? But they put people like Ed Martin and the guy from the Northern District of
right.
Yeah, you put these people there. They're crazy enough to do it. These people do not follow manuals, do not follow rules, do not follow what the law is. Yeah. And they could end up doing it, Popok.
So I agree with you. I don't think it's a bluff, but they got I think ultimately they've now put shade on Leticia James and Schiff, not among our audience, but in general, because now they got a headline. Criminal probes opened against Leticia James, New York Attorney General, her office, and Senator Adam Schiff. And some people don't get beyond the headlines. I think that's what our audience likes, that we get beyond the headlines and explain why sometimes the headlines are wrong or out of context. But here, right off of this Wednesday night meeting in the White House, that, again, lying to the American people. You and I both did videos on this. Trump asked about it, about Epstein and FBI, firing of FBI, and him saying, I don't know anything about this meeting, but JD Vance is right here. JD, is there a meeting in the White House tonight? Oh, fake news. Democrats try to distract. There was a meeting. It was attended by all the people that we reported on having been attended, and decisions were made. And we will see the results of those decisions, such as Todd Blanche having some phony press conference where he plays edited versions of his discussion with Ghislaine Maxwell to try to exonerate Donald Trump on the path to pardon for her, or goes on Joe Rogan or something else like that. We're going to see the benefit. We already saw the firing of the FBI agents. Now, within that slipstream of what just happened there in that news cycle, they then announce the attacks on these icons of Democratic strength. Adam Schiff, former prosecutor, congressperson from your area, senator now, who led the charge against Donald Trump in the impeachment process in the House. He's done it in the Senate, and also leading the charge on Jan 6th. So he has been, I won't even say what Donald Trump gave him a nickname, and he's been a thorn in Donald Trump's side for a long time. Leticia James, and I'll get to what's happened. Leticia James has been a thorn in Donald Trump's side, doing good trouble for a long time. She brought a successful civil fraud case against Donald Trump, proving to a New York State Supreme Court judge, Judge Engoron, that he committed, along with others in his family, along with others in his Trump organization, what we call in New York persistent fraud, under a unique statute that gives the power to the Attorney General as the sheriff of Wall Street to go after financial crime and financial fraud, I guess is the better way to put it. She doesn't actually have much criminal prosecution powers. She has tremendous civil enforcement powers. So she brings the case. It goes on for 9 weeks. You and I cover it every day, literally every day. We had people in the courtroom. We had reporters that we relied on. And after 9 weeks, dozens of witnesses, including Steve Witkoff, who is your effective Secretary of State with no experience, running around getting his head handed to him by Putin, testifying on behalf of Donald Trump as some sort of real estate expert. And Goron concluded that Donald Trump inflated his assets in order to get out from under certain personal guarantees for banks and lower the interest rates, and to brag to Forbes magazine and Fortune magazine about his wealth, and deflated his assets in real estate when he wanted to save on taxes. And he entered a $458 million judgment. And we've been waiting, and this is actually a crime. I've waited for the first department in New York sometimes, but not 9-10 months for a ruling about whether it's really, they're going to cut that 450 down to size. maybe in half. But I do not think, although now we'll have to see, I do not think that the First Department Appellate Division in New York is going to throw out the judgment. But we've been waiting, and in that time, Donald Trump's able to perpetuate mischief, because if it had got affirmed, it would be a little bit better. So that's Leticia James's office. She also went after the National Rifle Association, rightly so, a New York corporation at the time, for fraud and other things. Went after Wayne LaPierre, the flamboyant head of the NRA, and took him down for embezzlement. And Donald Trump didn't like that either, because Donald Trump likes Americans being shot in public schools and in churches and things, and supports the NRA. So now that he's got back in power and he's got the most corrupt Department of Justice in history, he can have Pam Bondi. Here's the conspiracy I teased at the top of our podcast. You've got the Nepo baby and Bill Pulte, who comes from the Pulte building family in the Southeast. Every other home in Atlanta was built by Pulte Homes. My late brother-in-law worked for Pulte Homes. So that Nepo baby gets put in, he's a little baby Trumper with political aspirations. He gets to be the head of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which are kind of two semi-private regulatory lending guarantee organizations in the real estate market. Donald Trump uses him for a number of things. One, he's the chief attack dog of Jay Powell at the Federal Reserve. And he lobbed in a complaint alleging that Schiff and Leticia James both committed mortgage fraud. Lands on the desk of a willing conspiratorial Pam Bondi. She says, looks good to me. What about the Department of Justice manual? Oh, no, that died 7 months ago. I threw that out 7 months ago. And she then makes a criminal referral, and grand juries get open on fraud. What's the fraud for Schiff? Bullshit. In order to be a senator representing a state, the Constitution says at the time of the election, you have to be resident in that state. And he was. But after he got elected, he bought a house in Maryland. And for the next 6 years has been listing that as his primary residence. So maybe he got a 1/4 of a point discount on the mortgage rate as a result. And at the time he runs for re-election 5 years from now, he's going to have to reestablish primary residency in California, which he will. But that's the requirement. And I'm sure he's got an ethics opinion that tells him exactly that. You don't have to be a primary resident of the state for the entire duration of the 6 years, because his day job is in Washington. And so he has his primary residence there. He will, I'm sure, reestablish residency should he choose to seek re-election in 5 years. So that's the mortgage fraud, which he already wrote a letter back to Pulte and told him exactly that, and said he had ethics advisory opinions to support him. But yet they opened up the investigation. So the New York Times has to have that banner. On Leticia James, she owns a couple of pieces of property. One is in Virginia. It's an investment property. I think her father's involved in it. And one is in New York, a multifamily. On the multifamily, it's listed, and I own property in New York, and it's a confusing Byzantine process. It's listed, it was built as a 5-unit multifamily, but I think they tore down a wall and it became a 4-unit. Why does that matter? Because as a 4-unit multifamily, you get more favorable interest rates than if it's a 5-unit. So she bought what was built as a 5, but she bought it as a 4. And she took out a loan as if it were a 4. 4, 5. Is any of this criminal intent, criminal mind, mens rea, to commit mortgage fraud? And she's got a great lawyer, Abby Lowell, who you and I know is representing her. So that's the mortgage fraud paperwork issue for Leticia James. Ironic that, and I'll tell you who's investigating her in a minute. Then you've got this Virginia home, and allegedly on the line listed for either co-borrower or whatever, they listed her father as her husband line instead of as the co-borrower when it's her father, as if she was trying to mislead the broker or the bank about the fact that her father's her father and not her husband. Sounds like a bank issue. There's, if you've ever done a mortgage, there's a mile high pile of documents to be signed, and she might have missed which line the person is on. I think I did the same thing. I signed an entire set of documents, like in my wife's, and I'm a lawyer, in my wife's signature block instead of where I was, and I had to redo them. It happens. That's not criminal fraud. Now, let's look at the continued conspirators. Who's investigating the mortgage fraud? Ed Martin. Who's Ed Martin? He's so MAGA Trumper and Jan 6er that he can't even get confirmed by the United States Senate to be the DC U.S. attorney. That's why we got Jeanine Pirro, because he's so MAGA. He's the guy that said, I'll do anything Elon Musk says. I'll prosecute anybody he tells me to. Okay. He defended Jan 6 insurrectionists. And I think this is the thing that got him, he lost the job over, is that he was on both sides of a case. He was the defense lawyer for a Jan 6er, and he signed the dismissal after the pardons on behalf of the federal government for the same guy. He couldn't even grab another guy. So he signed his own. It's like totally ridiculous. So what they do with him, they might have made it worse for us. They put him as the head of the weaponization committee under Pam Bondi. Well, the weaponization committee is now weaponized because he's now the prosecutor as some sort of quote unquote special attorney, not independent counsel, not special prosecutor, special attorney with whatever powers Bondi gave him to go after these mortgage issues. Separately, the last part of the conspiracy is John Sarconi, who you and I covered a lot in the last 4 or 5 weeks. He's the guy that also couldn't get confirmed in the Northern District of New York, upstate New York, as a federal prosecutor. So she made him, Pam Bondi, the acting interim special attorney with the powers of the Northern District, whatever it was. He's also got a couple of problems. One relates to his own residence. He claimed that he lived at a certain location. And when the local newspaper went to go check out that location, it was an abandoned, vacant, boarded up building. And the response for Sarconi was to fire the media outlet and not allow them to do any press conferences with him. All right. So he listed an abandoned building as his primary residence. And he's the one going after Leticia James and the Attorney General's office. And he also, there's some mixed reportings about whether he told the truth or lied about somebody, a knife-wielding attacker who happened to be brown or an immigrant that attacked him. There's a videotape that suggests that didn't go down exactly the way he said, that he tried to make himself more courageous and the attack more egregious than it really was. In either event, he's the guy that's now not only investigating Leticia James's office. So now you've got the Attorney General, a state law enforcement entity, the New York Attorney General, being invested by a local U.S. attorney in the Northern District up in Albany of New York. Talk about that lastly in a moment. In order to find out whether she violated Donald Trump's civil rights because she obtained a civil fraud conviction against Donald Trump for $450 million and went after the NRA. I mean, so they're going after her for abuse of power in her office. There's many, many problems with a federal prosecutor trying to go after a state law enforcement agency in our system of federalism, which will be played out. You and I will be teaching our audience about if that case gets beyond the grand jury. Why is it up in the Northern District of New York? Why is it not in Manhattan or Brooklyn? Because of the jury. Manhattan and Brooklyn are very liberal juries. Donald Trump got convicted in New York, in Manhattan, in a state court proceeding. His corporations got convicted in Manhattan, and Brooklyn's worse in terms of being on the liberal spectrum. More north you go in New York, all the way up to Albany, the better chance you got of getting moderates, more importantly, right-wing MAGA up there. That's where Elise Stefanik comes from and other MAGA. Even though it's a bright blue state, there are pockets of red, especially as you go north. So that's why they're prosecuting it up there. That's why they want the grand jury up there. There's things that she can do to kind of change venue, and we'll talk about that at another time. But that is the conspiracy. It's Pulte to Bondi, Bondi to Martin, Martin to Sarconi, and we're a lesser nation because of it.
Going back and taking this episode full circle, all of the skilled prosecutors, the career prosecutors, the top people at the DOJ, they've either been fired or they were most likely quit. So now you're left with the worst of the worst. Bad lawyers, bad people, not smart people, evil people, dangerous people. And that's who's running this. And then when they're not allowed to even hold the position, whether it's like an Alina Habba, whether it's like a Sarconi, whether it's this guy in the Central District of California, we haven't talked about him, whatever. They don't leave. They don't leave. They get asked or they get fired basically because they term out, because you can only be interim for a set period of time. Then they get fired by the judges who have the say if you can keep them on and extend them. Then they get fired by the federal judges. And then most people and this to me speaks of this sociopathic MAGA movement of norms and whatever. Most people, you get fired, you leave, you literally leave the office. And Alina Habba, I'm not leaving. Sarko, I'm not leaving. I'm staying. I'm not going anywhere. Get out. I'm not leaving. But the problem is when we, the people who follow the norms, are like, all right, you're just annoying. I have nothing I can do. Just fine. You want that position, stay. And that's when these idiots win. That's when these fascists win. When we like, okay, enough. Just you want the Nobel Peace Prize? Just give him the Nobel Peace Prize, right? I mean, just think about the mindset of Trump saying that too. I want it. I get the Nobel Peace Prize. And then they want more, and then they want more, and then they take more. And so we have people, we just want to go, I know you watching, you want to spend time with your family and have hobbies and go out and go for walks and go to movies and watch TV, or read books, and just do things. Where these miserable MAGA people, they just want to make you miserable. Like that's their hobby, right? Like where you're out there, hey, I want to go to the beach. I want to do that. They're thinking, how can I hurt someone? And that makes them happy. And eventually that wears people down. And they do it in such a relentless, nonstop way where eventually people who abide by norms say, just keep the fine. You want that position so badly, fine. And we can't though right now. We can't have that mentality. That's what Donald Trump's done his whole life, right? He doesn't take no. He keeps on doing it over and over again. He doesn't care. He blames whatever. And it's just a fountain of evil spewing over and over and over again, nonstop. But that's where we've got to stand up and say, stop it. Stop this crap. It ain't happening. It's not happening. I'm putting it all on the line for this.
Welcome back. We sit at the intersection of law and politics so that you don't have to. We have been doing that podcast for 5 years now. Top 50 because of you, our viewership, our audience over on Apple Pod. Top 20 on YouTube's rankings of all podcasts. But that's not ego. That's algorithm. We just need your help. We don't have a paywall. We don't have corporate investors. We don't have outside investors. We're not owned by anybody. We don't have a paywall. This is the way to support us. Hit the subscribe button. Watch and download. Send this clip to people in your life. Ask them to join us. We grow organically together. We do the show Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And then, of course, audio platforms like Apple and Spotify and the rest of that. And while I've got you, come on over to Legal AF YouTube channel, Legal AF MTN. Hit the free subscribe button there as well. And we'll continue to grow that channel, which we have 10 new videos a day at the intersection of law, politics, and the defense of our democracy. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.